Unforgettable, uncensored, unforgivable. The Unspoken Podcast with Tom Albano, Nick Fodera, and Nick Morgasen on the Undetermined Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, Chief Seed Sports Production, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. I'm Tom Albano along with Nick Fodera and Nick Morgasen, as always. Gentlemen, we've got quite a bit of stuff to talk about today.
Yes, we do.
It's craziness, it's pandemonium, and it's a lot to talk about.
Before we get started, though, I know we are a sports podcast. I know we tend to just stick with sports because we want to try to get away from all the craziness of everyday life, but our thoughts and prayers are with everyone affected with the school shooting down in Florida. I don't know what side of the fence all our listeners are on in terms of the political aspects of the world, but something's got to change. I don't care what side of the fence you're on. It seems like we're all at that conclusion now.
It does. I mean, our thoughts and prayers are with the families and with the victims, but something really does need to change. Not much you can do when nothing gets done, right?
I mean, we have a lot of craziness in this world, and as they say, we got to be thankful for our days on Earth every single day, and when things go on, you have to be fortunate that you're not part of them, but we just got to be better and just try to avoid these situations as best as possible.
I would have a lot more to say, but rather than be a part of the yelling, I want to try to be a part of the healing process. So let's move on to the sports side of the world. And let's start things off, guys, with the world of baseball. So we have this training camp underway. Spring training, of course, is back, but there's this training camp for basically players who have not signed yet. They are all free agents because there's still plenty of free agents out there. But now you would assume that these major league scouts for the major league teams, they would go to this training camp to see, okay, let's see what these guys have. Well, more specifically, a Kansas City Royals scout tried to get into this IMG spring training camp and was turned away.
Yeah, I mean, this is craziness. And you would think, and we'll get more into this in a couple minutes, but you would think that you would want these scouts and the media, which is another aspect we got to get to in this story because it's very interesting also.
They did throw media out. I should have mentioned that as well.
Right.
But this is supposed to be a showcase. You want people to sign you. I mean, what's your slogan for this camp? IMG camp.
I mean, literally, Nick, that's what they're saying. Like, all right, this is the IMG Academy. This is where roughly 166 players, or let me rephrase that. 90 players remain unsigned of the 166 that exercised free agency rights last November.
All of them are at this camp, right?
Correct.
That's what they're saying, that approximately. Some of them are working out on their own at their own facilities, but this is a major problem, and if we can't get this free agency thing under control, we need to kind of look over the rules of free agency and see what the problems are.
We do, and like I said, I mean, we're going to interview Freddie Coleman soon, but we'll get to that soon. I said, I mean, this is going to be a breaking point between the Players Union and MLB proper, especially with the CBA coming up. I can't see how these divisions are going to heal in time for everything to be not necessarily hunky-dory, but hunky when the CBA comes up in, I think, 2021, right?
Yes. Yeah. And one other point I want to make, and we've all had this discussion. Now, we all thought when Rob Manfred came in that he was going to be one of the better commissioners of all sports. But now, with all the issues that we're having, and I'm sure another topic of discussion we're going to get into is he wants to change the timing rules, including mound visits and manager visits, and he's adamant on having this changed, I think, by February 23rd. I think it's actually in this USA Today article that he wants these rules in place by February 23rd. Now, looking at my math, that's approximately a week from when we're recording now. So
exactly a week.
So basically, if he is some kind of wizard, then I don't see any of this shit happening because we're not making any progress. Tony Clark, who, in my opinion, I think is actually not a bad players union head. I think he's done a decent job at trying to get the players what they need. But Rob Manfred is not opened to change, really, except for the timing changes.
The pace of play stuff.
Right. He's dragging them kicking and screaming into this, and that is not going to end well. I mean, you need to have You need to foster a good relationship with the players' union when you are commissioner of a major sport. Bettman didn't do it. Goodell sure as fuck didn't do it.
Still hasn't done it. Probably I will be old and gray before he actually does.
I still think Adam Silver has probably been the best commissioner when it comes to taking the players' concerns and turning them into reality. From especially, they're trying to figure out the gambling situation outside the sport, which seemed to be coming close to. They're working on the TV rights problems, which were teams were sitting their players during a nationally televised game and TV networks were being screwed. And now they made a rule that you have to have players, if they're not physically injured, they have to be dressed and they have to play. So it seems like Adam Silver has figured out how to get these players in line and the Players Association to not come after him because he's respected, unlike other commissioners.
Also, Adam Silver, I know this is a different branch of the topic, but I mean, when one of your first things when you come in as commissioner is ban somebody like Donald Sterling for life and force him to sell the team, that's making a statement. And then Adam Silver also, one of these people who are like, they want change, but it's more of a forward progress in that, like, there's these deals that he's trying to get with Amazon and everything and trying to, stream games and change the viewing experience. He wants to bring the NBA into the future, and it seems like he wants progress, which I don't know if, well, let's face it, Goodell, I don't really think has done a good job with that. Bettman hasn't done a good job with that.
One point I would make here is that if you look at the strength of all the players' associations in general, the NBA is kind of on the same foot with Adam Silver. Roger Goodell and the Players Association, not even a chance. Major League Baseball, Players Association, and the ownership, MLBPA by far holds the cards in Major League Baseball over Rob Manfred. If they don't like something, they will file 10,000 grievances until it goes away.
This is what I've talked to you guys on the pre-show. I mean, this is a millionaires versus billionaires situation in that the owners gave away all these contracts, that maybe were not, so much well-earned and that they're, like, ridiculous. And now, you got guys like Eric Hosmer wanting, like, an 8-9 year deal, which I still find ridiculous, but they're blaming, the owners. You got Major League Baseball. They have a case of BS, blame Scott Boras syndrome.
I like it.
Scott Boras, that's his job, is to get the most money for his players. So this is all ridiculous. The TV contracts are about to burst. The players are dissatisfied, even though they're getting paid triple-digit $1 million. The owners, well, they're the owners, and yet the family.
Owners are tanking. Let's be honest with ourselves for a second. It's basically Tiananmen Square here when it comes to tanking.
The Pirates and the Marlins, correct.
But let's not kid ourselves and say that next year's free agent class is not going to be a bonanza. People are still going to get paid and paid big next year.
There's still a couple of factors here, though, that we're not looking at.
As we've said before, but the family of four can't afford to go to a game, at least not without something like StubHub or SeatGeek.
Right. And, I mean, that's one factor. The other factor we got to look at, if you look at what teams were making moves this offseason, and even though it might have been the big teams like the Yankees and the Dodgers, those teams were not really players in the free agency sweepstakes. And if you look at history in MLB free agency, if those teams are not involved, then there's no market for the rest of these big guys. Look at the guys that are on free agency. JD Martinez, Mike Moustakas, Eric Hosmer, Jake Arrieta. You're looking at guys that are looking for big money, big money. JD Martinez is looking for like $220 to $250 million over like 8 or 9 years. I mean, no one's going to give him that.
Darvish, because in between the time of the last episode and now, he got signed by the Cubs. So
yeah, he got a 6-year, $126 million deal with an escalator to reach $150 million if he gets a Cy Young award, I think in the first 2 years.
But it's still not anywhere close to what he wanted when the free agency process began.
Well, do you guys think that they're starting to realize now, we need to sign a deal, as best of a deal as we can, otherwise we're going to be sitting out this season?
I think it's a game of chicken, actually, from the standpoint of, I want my money, I put up my stats, but at the same time, if I don't sign a deal soon, I'm not going to be playing with a team. Also, I think these owners are finally getting smart and saying, hey, we can't do this anymore. We can't afford these contracts. We don't want to have another A-Rod happen again where we sign him for 10 years, $300 million with $5 million escalators for home run records, which made the deal like close to $330 million. And the owners are getting over the Yankee wounds, and the Yankees are still getting over their own wounds. So no one wants to do these big contracts anymore.
I was just going to point out, well, you still got Jacoby Ellsbury, who none of the other teams are going to be willing to take on his deal. So he's getting paid big bucks that the Yankees
sit on the bench.
To sit on the freaking bench.
His name is basically Al B. Truss at this point. But still, to sum it up, I mean, it's like one of those old-timey duels in an old Western where both sides are fast enough to shoot first, but they both get shot, they both die. It's bad on all sides.
Yeah, and I think Nick Morgasen actually put it in a way even better than I could think of. It's a game of chicken, basically. It's like who's going to balk first, and if nobody balks, the fans all lose.
Well, look at Eric Hosmer. This is the last thing I want to say. Look at Eric Hosmer, as you said, Tom. 8 or 9 years, probably at about 18 to 20 AAV. So if people are wondering what that is, average annual value per year. So that's a lot of money. And now we're hearing that JD Martinez might go back to the Diamondbacks, and they're talking about doing a better average annual value per season to bring him back on less years. So we'll have to see what happens.
And we actually do talk with Freddie Coleman later today of ESPN Radio. He has some stuff that he has to say on this topic, plus a bunch of other topics. But before we get to that, guys, let's go around the diamond. It's time for part 2 of the Unspoken Podcast 2018 MLB Preview. Today we're going to be discussing the American League West. So this one's going to be interesting. I feel like all three of us have somebody in mind for a winner, but we'll get to that in a second. But let's start things off with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, who made probably the biggest move in the offseason, well, one of the biggest moves of the offseason, on December 9th when the Angels agreed to a deal with Shohei Ohtani, who now has an injury in his arm.
By the way, if you want to check out a really good video and meme that Tom made, this is perfect for this situation right now. Just want to bring that up. But the Angels, this has been a very interesting fall, I want to say, over the past 3 or 4 years. 80 and 82, under 500, 21 games out. That just showed you how big. In second place, by the way. That shows you how great the Astros were. We'll get to Astros later. But the Angels were a prominent team in the early 2000s. They had guys like Sean Figgins and Garrett Anderson and Jared Weaver and
Vlad Guerrero.
Right. And now they have Albert Pujols, who, again, falls under that situation of bad contract of 10 years, close to $300 million. So this team is just old, and they are cycling through players.
Yeah, I'm looking at this team roster right now, and I'm being honest with you guys. As much as they're, star power and, name value, I'm not impressed. I mean, there's Mike Trout, he's Mike Trout.
But is one of the best players in the game.
Right, but Justin Upton, Albert Pujols, Luis Valbuena, Ian Kinsler, Cozart. I mean, it's fine, but there's just something about this team that I dislike.
What are you expecting to get out of Zach Cozart? I mean, he was good when he was with the Reds. What are you expecting him to give you? Expecting him to give you power numbers? He's not a power hitter. You have the ghost of Albert Pujols.
Yeah, it was kind of a game-saver move, to be honest. The Angels are really not going anywhere in the next couple of years, at least in my opinion. And I think eventually, and I'm going to make a bold prediction here, that Mike Trout doesn't last with this team for his whole career. And
I got a feeling, I'll one up you, Nick. I got a feeling maybe towards the latter end of his deal, he's going to get traded.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if you heard rumors of him at the trade deadline this year and next year. I mean, they have Justin Upton in left, who's kind of a has-been. He's jumped around 4 separate teams now. Cozart, like you said, from the Reds. He's going from a smaller ballpark to a bigger one now. Andrelton Simmons, great defensive shortstop. Not too sure about the hitting. Ian Kinsler's going to strike out close to 200 times a year. Pujols is going to play first at DH, but can he stay healthy? I mean, this team is kind of a joke, if you really want to put it. And Ohtani, he wants to at least hit once a week and pitch once a week. It's not going to happen.
And right now he's dealing with that injury in his arm, so we don't even know what's going on with him. And now, guys, let's stick with California. Let's go over to Oakland with the Oakland Athletics. And God, Nick, if you want to call one team pathetic, I think the A's are even more pathetic, honestly, than the Angels.
Well, A's is actually quite apt because they're playing like A's. But
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, you want to talk about tanking? I mean, they did that in the middle of last year, trading Sonny Gray to the Yankees. They got a good big prospect haul back for him, but
they have some good players. They have Jed Lowry. They have Chris Davis, not that Chris Davis, the other Chris Davis. Dustin Fowler, Marcus Simeon, Piscotty. I mean, it's okay.
It's a good team. Is it a good enough team to challenge the Astros? And that's really the measuring stick for this division. You're good, but can you catch the Astros?
It's a team where they're kind of in between. They're going to be moving, hopefully, to a new ballpark in the next couple of years because this ballpark is just falling apart piece by piece.
Well, it's one of the old football stadiums when they combined the football, baseball stadiums, right?
Right. And I'm looking at the roster. I'm trying to see who I know on here. Matt Joyce, who used to be a former Tampa Bay Ray. I mean, he'll hit you 15 to 20 home runs at best. Fowler in center, I don't know too much about. Piscotty's been on the team for a while. Or was that the guy they traded for? Was that the Cardinals story where he got traded to the A's to be closer to his grandmother who had cancer, I think?
Yeah, I think so.
He's a decent hitter, but it's still got to wait to be seen. Don't know Chapman at third. Lowry is a former Red Sox second baseman, but he's kind of outdated. Olsen at first. I've seen him play a little bit. These are all prospects, really. I mean, except for Davis, who has some decent power, but it's in a bad ballpark to hit.
It's a decent team, but it's nothing special.
It's a team full of background extras in a movie.
Let's put it this way. There's nothing sexy on this roster that makes you say, I want to watch the A's.
Not really. Not really. So, guys, let's move on from the A's. Let's go up the West Coast to Seattle. Now, guys, here's my description of Seattle, like the Seattle Mariners. They are a team that could, but can't.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say here?
The little engine that doesn't.
I think you're being a little nice, actually. I don't know how much I believe in this team. Looking at this roster, Nelson Cruz is your DH. He's going to hit 30-plus home runs like he does every year.
You got D. Gordon traded from Miami, but he's not going to play second base. He's going to play center field.
Yeah, that kind of confused me a little bit.
Big time confused me.
Kyle Seager at third base. If he's healthy, that's probably a 30-home run position also.
Got Cano.
Gene Segura, who was a former Milwaukee prospect, now in Seattle.
Hasn't hit 300 in a couple of years since he's been in Seattle, right?
Yeah, he hasn't hit 300, actually. Cano, if he's healthy, will hit close to 30 home runs. So you probably have three guys that could hit 30-plus home runs. But it's going to be hard in Safeco Field, another tough ballpark to hit in. But their rotation is really their problem. Felix Hernandez is really a nobody anymore. I'm sorry to say it, Seattle fans, if you're listening to this podcast. Felix Hernandez is really hittable now.
I
don't think he's a nobody. I still think he's the ace of the staff. I still think he can pitch well. He just has to get his groove back.
I think you're both right. I think, yes, he is still the ace of this team, Nick Fodera, but to Nick Morgasen's credit, when did he get that injury? It was like 2015, 2016?
He just wasn't the same. I think it was the end of 2014 and then into 2015. He just wasn't the same.
That's my point. After 2015, that injury, he just hasn't been the same.
He doesn't have the velocity anymore. I mean, he can't strike people out. His splitter doesn't work because his fastball is not dangerous as it used to be. He used to throw 97, 98, and then he would drop a splitter right over your bat. And you would go back to the dugout with the stupid look on your face saying, what the heck did I just do? Right. And now he's hittable. Sorry. He just is.
I like their additions, but can they put it together? That's the thing.
I don't know. That's the big thing. Guys, let's go to Texas. But let's go with the Texas Rangers first. And, I mean, I'll say this. I like the left side of their field, especially their infield. You got Elvis Andrus and Adrian Beltre still there. You got Odor at second base. I wonder if he and Bautista will get into a fight again.
Oh, that was glorious. I really wish we were podcasting back then.
Looking at this roster, though, Elvis Andrus, in my opinion, is overrated because I don't see – he hasn't really put up the numbers. He hasn't been healthy at times. He's got a great shortstop's arm like Andrelton Simmons, like we talked about before with the Angels. But can he put up the offensive numbers? Adrian Beltre, he'll probably – if he's healthy and he's not being a clown like usual, and if everyone remembers the story from last season where he moved the batters –
oh, yeah.
the batting stuff, on deck stuff, behind home plate, and the umpire threw him out for doing it.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
But like you said, Odor, another guy, if you keep his attitude in check, he could definitely hit probably close to 30 home runs. I have no problem saying that.
Your outfield, you have Shin-Soo Choo, you have Delino the Shields Jr. Pitchers, I guess Cole Hamels would have to be the ace of this team.
Talk about someone who's way overrated now. A guy who was an ace 3 to 4 years ago can barely hit 90 miles an hour anymore on the mound. This guy fell off a cliff. That's the way I think of it.
But still, I mean, where the left side of their infield goes, the team will go. Honestly, I think Andrews and Beltre, they still are enough of an important part of this team and contributing to this team where this season depends on them.
I was going to say, but that's the thing. If this season, if they suck, if Beltre and Andrews, they get hurt or they don't live up to what Rangers hope, then this team goes nowhere.
What I like is some of the additions they made in the pitching rotation. Doug Fister, who can be an innings guy. Matt Moore, who was on the Giants last year, can be an innings guy. Are they two starters or 3 starters? No. But they will come in and pitch and eat up these innings, which the Rangers are having a problem with. And their bullpen, which has been historically bad for the past 3 or 4 years, they might be able to take some tax off of it so it lasts longer throughout the season.
And guys, last but not least, the defending World Series champion, Houston Astros.
Gag. I know. I genuflect in front of the Kings, and I do, but doesn't mean I have to like it.
Well, I know why Knicks fans, because the Yankees put out some tweet this week saying like how basically they were, on being like, who's going to stop us? And Justin Verlander.
Chris Russo did that.
Verlander, not the Yankees, Verlander.
No, but I mean, Verlander said, Verlander responded. He said, I know who can stop them. And, of course, referring to the Astros who beat the Yankees in a classic American League Championship Series last year.
What a douche. I'm sorry. I mean, as much as Verlander resurrected his career with the trade away from the Tigers to the Astros and basically carried this team, and I'm sorry, whoever thought it was Dallas Keuchel can go take a seat because they don't understand baseball. It was Verlander, not Keuchel. I don't want to hear it. A million baseball analysts who tell me that it's Dallas Keuchel, I will argue with them all day long. It was Verlander. Verlander was the MVP of this team for the second half of the season.
Well, of course, the debate is the Keuchel-Verlander thing, but there is no debate that Verlander, once he went to the Astros, he turned back to the Verlander of friggin' 06-07.
He started throwing 97-98 again. We haven't seen that in years from him.
It was astounding to see. It really was. And he was the reason why they went to the World Series in the first place. He was the reason why they won the damn thing.
But let's be real.
The only question here that we can debate, I think, based on the evidence presented of all the teams that we've looked at so far, is are the Astros going to win this division by double digits or single digits?
But basically, it's the thing. It's like, let's not even do sort of a prediction. I feel like this is the obvious. This is one of the most obvious things here. It's the freaking Astros.
They added Garrett Cole. They got stronger. I mean, they don't have the rest of the team.
I don't know if that makes them stronger, though. They don't have a chance. I don't know if that makes them stronger, though, because I wouldn't say Garrett Cole is the ace of that staff. Garrett Cole is kind of the 3 guy in this staff behind Keuchel and Verlander.
Well, I was gonna say, I don't know if that's necessarily to call him the ace, but look at the team. Look at the pitching staff, the rotation. It's the freaking, pen of aces. It's freaking Cole. It's freaking Verlander. It's freaking Keuchel.
Right.
You still got, Lance McCullers, Colin McHugh, Charlie Morton, Ken Giles. You still have quite a team here, especially in that pitching staff.
Here's what I'll say, though. 101-61 last season, 40 games over. The odds of them repeating that season are not very strong. Let's put it that way. And are they going to win by a lot? Yes, they're going to win by a lot. But to repeat a 40 games over 500 season, you guys know that that's really hard to do.
I disagree. Yes, it's hard to do, but they can do it.
I think they can do it as well. I think even if they don't get 101, or even if they don't get 100 or 101, I think they'll just narrowly miss. They'll still get 95 plus, 97 plus even.
Oh yeah,
you might even see them try to make a shot at the 98 Yankees record, and that'd be something to see.
I was gonna say that's gonna be the challenge. That's a challenge.
I mean, that team was just totally above arms. Like no one was beating the Yankees in 98. Do I think they can do it? Yes, but it's going to be hard.
But we're all in agreement. It's the Astros again.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's going to be the Astros.
You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. Guys, it's time for In Other News. So let's just get into some of the other headlines that have popped up this week. Let's start with Johnny Manziel. So, guys, it seems like the comeback season is still on, I guess. It's still hopeful. But Manziel had a special on ABC News this past week where he basically came out and admitted that he has been having a struggle with bipolar disorder.
Are you surprised? Look at how the guy acted when he was in the NFL with the Browns. I mean, the guy was a party animal. He couldn't control himself. And now that he comes out and says I have bipolar syndrome and that I want sober and I'm not drinking, you think we're supposed to feel sympathy for the guy? No.
I do. No, I do. I believe me. I know how bad mental illness can be. I mean, what you're telling me you don't believe him?
No, I didn't say I don't believe him. I said, trust me, I feel bad for the guy because I understand mental illness. But at the same time, I feel like he's looking for a little bit of sympathy at the same time to get him back to the NFL, which I don't think is going to happen.
I have sympathy for him, but at the same time, I think at this point the damage is done for the NFL career. I think at this point, if he wants to go back to the NFL, it's going to be a long way to the top. He is going to have to start at the CFL again.
I mean, between the attitude problems and the drinking problems that he had, and now throw bipolar on top of it, I mean, who's going to want to take him on? That's what I'm saying.
Well, considering the quarterback play that we had this past season, I mean, he would be a step up. I mean,
but he hasn't stepped on the field in how long?
He hasn't stepped on a field in years. He's still got a lot to prove. Let's not get that wrong. Whether I feel sympathy for him or not is immaterial as far as his playing ability goes, and we really need to see how much that has diminished before we start raining the hosannas down on him.
By the way, he hasn't been on the field since 2015 with the Browns.
Right, because at that point, I mean, he's just another one of that long list of failed Browns quarterbacks. Somebody, I remember, I think it was last Halloween or 2 Halloweens ago, somebody had a grave, and it was every single Browns quarterback from the 90s on. It's just when is it going to end?
Tombstone said that?
There was a tombstone. It was a Halloween decoration.
Oh, thank God.
There's more quarterbacks in the Browns organization than the lottery could print numbers for.
That's definitely up there. Guys, let's imagine this. Let's imagine we were not the hosts of the Unspoken Podcast, but we still had creative control, and we said, we told the actual host, okay, you're going to do this, and this. But let's say there's another week where we let the other guys basically have creative control. Well, that's basically what Steve Kerr was trying to do with his Golden State Warriors this week. So Golden State was playing a game against the Phoenix Suns, and during the timeout huddles, you could see Kerr basically doing nothing, and the Warriors players just basically talking and planning stuff amongst themselves.
So he's letting the inmates run the asylum, essentially.
Basically, yes.
Well, I mean, yeah, they were kind of running the asylum, but at the same time, the Suns are such a horrible team. They're 18. They're 18-40, I think. I don't have the record in front of me.
But they're one of the worst teams in the NBA this year.
They are, but at the same time, everyone was asking him, "Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? Were you trying to show them up?" And he's like, "No, I wasn't trying to show them up. I was trying to let my players run the huddle." Well, you know what? Why don't you do that during a playoff game and let's see what happens?
Maybe it was a little bit of both. I'm not going to say. Maybe okay, I'm going to let them. I don't care about this team, so laissez-faire. Let them do as they want.
I don't have a problem with it, but at the same time, it's weird. It's a weird time to do it. And by the way, they're 18-41, and they're dead last in the Western Conference.
Jesus, H muffin basket. That's a lot of losing.
That is a lot of losing indeed. But, I mean, I was watching Around the Horn, pardon the interruption, this week. And one of the episodes of Around the Horn had Shelbourne from Los Angeles.
Ramona Shelbourne,
yes. And Jackie McMullen from Boston. Basically saying, I think it was the two of them who basically said, well, you'd be surprised. More teams actually do this. They're just more discreet about it.
Yeah, well, if they step out to go to the bathroom, then you can hide it. But if you're just sitting there checking Twitter or you're playing Angry Birds on your phone, I know I'm dating myself, but still, you can't hide it if you're right out in the open and everybody can see that you're doing nothing. Take it from me. I'm the king of doing nothing.
I mean, the only one that we assume, there would be no surprise of is maybe the Cavs because, LeBron's the GM, the coach, everything. But
did you forget he's also the commissioner of the NBA?
He is that too. All right, moving on, guys. Hey, let's talk about Woody Miller.
Oh, wait. Okay, I got to get that out of my system. But
Nick, take it from here.
Oh, God. So Bodie Miller, if you've been watching the Olympics, by the way, the Olympics have actually been spectacular. And I'll leave you with a little teaser on this front. We're working on a major guest down the line from that was in this year's Olympics, and we'll give you some feedback and some answers when we get them at a later date. But I'll leave it at that. Bodie Miller, who we all know can be a hothead, shithead. I don't know, Nick, do you have some kind of name for guys like
Dickhead.
this? Well, okay. Basically, could put his head in the golden toilet and we could flush it, but...
No. The golden toilet is not a right, it's a privilege. He doesn't have access to the golden toilet. He goes right to the rusty Grand Central Station toilet.
No, that's a rusty porta potty.
And he has to clean it.
Yuck. All right, so Bodie Miller apologizes for saying female skier's career declined due to her marriage.
Basically, this guy, for whatever reason, decided, during the broadcast, like, he was going over, like, about how the skier's career was going downhill and basically saying, she's not putting maybe the training time in and such. And it's like, I'm not trying to blame. He basically, I don't know the exact quote, but it was something like...
I have it.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. So here's what he was saying. I think this is during the actual speed skating event. Or not speed skating, whatever event it was. I don't know. I haven't really been watching the Olympics 100%. The knee is certainly an issue. I want to point out she also got married, and it's historically very challenging to race on the World Cup with a family or after being married. Not to blame the spouses, but I just want to toss it out there that it could be her husband's fault.
And Nick, you had a good response there. You're like, if you're trying to do this, you're like, I'm trying to say it's not this person's fault, but it is their fault.
It is. It's a sorry, not sorry. And it's misogynist is what it is. Because these women they're so hysterical, they can't focus on anything. And it's just horrible. It's 1940s thinking. And you know what? In a broader sense, I know we're in the Winter Olympics, but this has been the Olympics of bad announcing. It has. I mean, think about it. Everything we've heard about bad takes from radio show hosts. I mean, that despicable thing that was said about Chloe Kim. Need I remind you about that?
Oh, yeah, KNBR. Yeah, KNBR in San Francisco.
Basically, objectifying a 17-year-old snowboarder in a disgusting way. And this really has been the Olympics of bad announcing. Just when you think it can't get any lower, the bar sinks. It sinks through the fucking floor.
Well,
I get what this is the thing. Like, I know what he's trying to say about marriage and like how it's hard to train and keep a family at the same time. Basically, mixed martial artists, boxers, plugging Combat Mania here, they go through that kind of hard stretch as well. But to put a blame on, like a relationship, it's like, come on, man, come on.
I mean, he went so far up the butt, I hate to say, that he gave himself a wedgie Miller. I mean, that basically, that's the only way I can put it. But sorry if that offends anybody, but this is an uncensored podcast and I could give two shits. But
Wedgie Miller and the Indiana Pooters.
Right, exactly. So basically, Bodie Miller came out and gave what I like to call a backhanded apology.
Right, this is a sorry, not sorry, like Nick said.
Okay, so here's what he said. I know that you meant well. I apologize. It was an ill-advised attempt at a joke. You know I was an athlete who competed after marriage, and I know how beneficial it is. I know the support team you need. I relied on my friends and family, and if you have the luxury of relying on a spouse, I know they're inevitably your biggest supporter. And on Valentine's Day, I did not mean to throw spouses under the bus. Certainly, I'm going to be hearing it from my wife. I know. And
there's bullshit. That's all I hear from this thing. But again, it goes to my point. Doing something like training for Olympics or any other sport, it's hard. It can be hard on a relationship, but, that's the support group. But it sounds like it was not a joke. It was not a joke what he was trying to say. That's bullshit.
All I could say is that since he was talking about Valentine's Day, I don't think Bodie Miller was riding the slopes, if you know what I'm saying.
No, he was. Do you hear that? I think I hear it too. I think it's the sound of eyes rolling. It is.
He was on a slope. It was a downward slope to hell. That's what it was.
He was an avalanche and he was rolling downhill and basically he got caught. And Dan Hicks, who was the play-by-play guy, who I feel bad for, because apparently in the story...
He had to, hold his hand through the apology.
Right. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? You had to get someone else who was professional to hold your hand through the goddamn apology? Come on, Bodie. You're old news. I'm trying to hold back from saying the term because it's political. But basically, it's old news.
Guys, let's move on to... one more thing. Speaking of awful announcing, hi WEI, welcome back to the shit circle.
Oh, God. I mean...
It's not even a metaphor anymore. It's a literal circle of shit.
I don't even know what to say. I mean, it's just... Ugh. And
so WEI has had its second controversy in a couple of weeks. It's just... I don't understand. How does a radio station go through two controversies like this in a week? So there's another...
Context is necessary. Yeah. Tell us what happened.
So basically, I forget the name of the WEI radio host, but he was an Asian American man, and they were talking about the Olympics, I think. Were they?
His name is Christian Faria.
Christian, right. And basically, he mocked an Asian accent on air.
It was Don Yee, right?
Yeah, it was Tom Brady's agent, Don Yee. And what's really ridiculous about this whole story, and I think I brought it up to you guys yesterday or the other day, was that he is Asian and he's making fun of Asians. People think that because you're the same race as the one you're making fun of, you can get away with that. That's not how it works.
You can't get away with that. Believe me. Believe me. Look, can you not be a jerk? Seriously, when you get on air, can you sign a contract, not in any kind of legalese or any kind of skirting around the question, mamboing around the question, or in otherwise performing any kind of dance around the question? Just say it in plain language. If you're a dick, you will be fired.
Well, I'll answer your question, actually, Nick, or comment, Nick, which basically, when you sign a contract to be an on-air talent or a writer that's giving your opinions, when you sign a contract, you have to agree to represent the company to the fullest extent of responsibility. And if you break that contract, technically, you're supposed to be fired. And reading the story here, I can tell you why he got fired. Besides making the racist impersonation, the sponsors for WEEI were cut ties from the station. They were losing money from it. So
exactly.
It was over. Done.
Get it where it hurts, in their wallet. How much more of this, like you said before, Tom, racist shitstorm from WEEI's talent are the owners of the station going to take?
Let me give you another aspect here. So John Dennis and Jerry Callahan, it's actually a very popular morning show on WEEI, Dennis and Callahan, which is also simulcasted on television there, I think on Nesson. They compared an escaped gorilla to an inner city Medco student.
Oh my God.
And now, because of all their shit, today, the day that we are recording this, they have suspended all programming at WEI from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. for sensitivity training. A whole radio station is shut down for 12 hours.
Well, I don't know if it's shut down or they're just going to put on, I guess, like best of programs, I would think. And who knows? They haven't come out and said what it is. But just a few more comments because they list them here. The time Lou Merlone said he was weighing whether to attack protesters with a baseball bat. That was one. The time Kirk Mahane questioned whether Adam Jones had fabricated a story of racial abuse from Red Sox fans. Now, people who don't know that story, that's when Adam Jones had food thrown at him at Fenway Park. I think it was peanuts.
Yeah, during a Red Sox-Orioles series, yeah.
And the fans were not thrown out of the stadium. And also, Mahane called Aaron Andrews a gutless bitch on the air.
Boston's just so full of shitheads. That's why I hate them the most. As a sports fan, that's why I hate Boston the most. Not just because of the New York-Boston rivalries. But
we have our share of racists over here, but this is way, way beyond.
These are professionals. These are guys who are supposed to be professionals.
Well, and you can't keep your racist garbage out of your mouth and out of your mind?
Well,
Jesus.
Let me throw one more. How about this past couple of weeks at the Super Bowl with Alex Reamer, who called Tom Brady's 3-year-old daughter an annoying little pissant?
Right. I mean, that's the other thing that happened in the span of a couple of weeks.
And then the Times WEEI personalities have callously, attacked female journalists such as the Charlotte Wilder and Brittany Della Crates. I mean, it's unbelievable. And to be honest with you, maybe the station has to go off the air, but it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, but that station needs a transformation, and it needs one bad.
New hosts.
New guard. So, guys, before we get to our interview with Freddie Coleman, I just want to say one more thing. God damn it, Raiders, you had to release Janikowski. What the hell? Come on.
Hey, the guy's almost 40 years old.
Lederhosen jokes.
Now Tom Brady is the only person from the 2000 NFL draft that is on the team that drafted him. That's a fun fact.
Oh, that's impressive. I mean, because we want to give Tom Brady all the positive accolades he can receive, right? Yeah.
Oh, no, it's just a fact that I found.
No, I'm just saying, because everyone likes to give him praise. He was a 6th or 7th round pick, and he made his way all the way to the top, and he's famous, and he's got him.
He got that to this day, by the way, that he was a 6th round pick, despite all those Super Bowls.
Yes, because we're all excited. He was a 6th round pick. He's famous. He's got a movie star wife, and he's got all the money he wants, and he's got trainers that have to go with him everywhere. Should I keep going, or am I boring everybody?
I'm actually starting to hear that in my sleep, so please stop.
Okay, So, guys, we got to have the chance to talk with Freddie Coleman of ESPN Radio, actually, and man, does he put, I think you said it best, Nick, the cool in sports.
Yes,
and awesome. He really is.
And just to give you a little teaser so we know what we're talking about. So we talked some baseball, we talked about the IMG camp, talked some NBA. He had an interesting take on Steve Kerr being in the closet. Not that type of closet.
And he had a take on the Johnny Manziel situation as well. So let's throw it to that interview with Freddie Coleman right now.
Joining us now on the Unspoken Podcast, he puts the cool in sports talk radio. He is one half of Freddie and Fitzsimmons on ESPN Radio, 9 p.m. to 1 p.m. Monday through Friday. It is Freddie Coleman. Freddie, thanks for joining us.
I need you guys to be my agent and publicist for that kind of introduction, so hopefully I can live up to that, guys.
Well, LeVar Ball wants to put his 3 sons together on the same team, and they're talking about the Lakers, and he's told them a lot of things. What do you make? Do you make any sense or logic of this report from LeVar Ball at all?
Of course not, because anything that LeVar Ball is going to say, even if it makes a little bit of sense or it doesn't make any sense at all, it's all going to be about him generating a lot of heat and a lot of attention for the LeVar Ball brand. And he can say that he's doing it for the sake of his sons. And I don't doubt that for one second, because I honestly believe that LeVar Ball wants to try to reduce as much pressure on his son, because he knows with everything that he said and anything that he's been about, he's going to put that kind of pressure on his children, whether he believes they can handle it or not. But at the same time, if you're LeVar Ball, especially now where anything you say is going to generate any kind of reaction, you know that people are going to pay attention whether they want to or not. So whether it makes sense or not, it's all about LeVar Ball getting that kind of attention, which is something he's craved for a long, long time.
Well, now, Freddie, do you see a point during Lonzo's career where basically he's going to be affected by all of his father's outbursts? Do you think there's a point where he's going to stop listening to his father?
I think he's at that point now, mainly because a couple of days ago when somebody asked him about LeVar Ball saying that he wants all 3 of his sons to play together, Lonzo shrugged his shoulders and said, "Hey, that's my dad. You know, he likes to talk, and that's what he does." And he didn't expand or even continue that conversation any further. So I know he's a young man at 19, 20 years of age, but he's gotten to the point right now that he says, there isn't anything that I can do about my dad. He's going to say whatever he wants. But I can't allow that to really take away what I'm trying to do as an NBA player and trying to be the best player for my basketball team. Now, if the Lakers get fed up and they decide they want to move on from Lonzo Ball, then you know he has to get stink eye, meaning his dad from Lonzo Ball, because he probably look at him and say, "Dad, I was in a great position, and now that's not there anymore." But at this point, I think Lonzo Ball just looks at his dad and he says, well, no one can stop him from saying what he wants to say, but I have to make sure that does not affect me and what I'm trying to do with the Lakers and in the NBA.
Now, Freddie, if I may broaden the focus a little bit to the NBA trade deadline, do you think that all the trades that the Cavaliers made at the deadline are a case of addition by subtraction?
Oh, I completely think that, especially when it comes to you got to make sure the king is happy or you're going to be in the pit of misery like the commercial with Dilly Dilly. And that's the last thing anybody wants to have happen in Cleveland, especially if they want to keep LeBron James past this season, whether it's for one more year. If he decides to exercise that part of the contract where you get $35.6 million or he signs a multi-year deal, And to be fair, this Cleveland Cavaliers team, they were definitely slow and old defensively. They're not that much better defensively, but at least they have younger guys that will compete a lot harder based on, let's call it as is, based on evolution and the fact they got younger guys and better guys defensively. But if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers and Kobe Altman, as a general manager, you did everything possible. I mean, he didn't pull a rabbit out of a hat. He pulled an elephant out of a hat. What he was able to do to not only get younger and quicker, but better around LeBron James for whatever run they're going to have in the Eastern Conference playoffs. But I think he also put LeBron James on notice by saying, well, if you decide to leave, you can't say that we didn't do enough to help you and make sure that we're going to be in a better position to win the NBA championship. You can't use that as a way to say, this is one of the reasons why I decided not to sign with Cleveland. So Kobe Altman, by making these trades, not only helped LeBron James and Cleveland in the short term, but in terms of a long-term future, he says, hey, we're going to fortify ourselves. So if you leave, that's on you. But you can't say we didn't try to accommodate you to make sure we had a better basketball team for you trying to win a championship.
Now, talking about King on the court in a more of a different sense, and Steve Kerr letting his players coach the huddle and kind of taking a step back, do you think this is kind of like a change of the guard in a sense in the NBA where the coaches are kind of letting the players take a little more power, or do you think it was kind of just the Suns are one of the worst teams in the NBA and he was rubbing it in, or what do you think it was?
Well, I don't think it was rubbing in at all, because if the Suns were upset by that, and based on what I've read and what I've heard, they weren't upset by that at all. They said, if anything, we should be upset that happened, and they beat us by that kind of amount of points, where we only scored 83 and they scored 129. I don't think the Suns were upset by that, because, hey, that's not an issue for anybody else in terms of Steve Kerr wanting to do something like this. He was having fun. He even said, the players are tired of my voice. So I figured, hey, this is your team. Why not take ownership in it? And I didn't understand. I understand people have an opinion about it. And if you didn't like the way that he did it, I completely understand that. When people said it was an insult to the game and it was an embarrassment to the game, so let me get this straight. You allowed the players to have fun. They had fun doing it. They were able to do that and win a basketball game, beat the fool out of the Phoenix Suns. And that's a bad thing. The NBA has always been about understanding that it is a players' league. We know where the power is when it comes to the NBA. It's with the owners, with the general managers, and definitely with the coaches. But you can't do anything without the players. And the players feel they're partners with the NBA owners and general managers. They're not on opposite sides like we've seen in the National Football League and at times in Major League Baseball. So for anybody to say that this was bad for the game, I don't understand how that was bad for the game. Now, it's one thing the players had a mutiny and they tied up Steve Kerr and put him in a closet and coached the game. Then you're right. Then that's a major, major problem. But none of that happened. Steve Kerr said, hey, I know you guys are tired of my voice. We can't wait to get to the All-Star break. How about we try this? And players on board with it. And even a couple of Phoenix Suns players said, man, I wish we were like that good, where we could do something like that, where a coach has that kind of trust in us, but we're the Phoenix Suns. So I didn't have a problem with it. I understand other people had a problem with it, but I think using the words embarrassment and insult was a little heavy when it came to that.
We're talking with Freddie Coleman of ESPN Radio, and it's perfect that you brought up baseball during that response, because we're going to switch gears here now to the MLB. The MLB season, of course, around the corner. Do you think Yu Darvish signing with the Cubs is an indicator of how slow the market's been this offseason?
I don't think the market's been slow. It's been at stop when you think about that, guys, because plenty of owners, and you can call it collusion. I don't think it's collusion, to be honest with you, that a lot of these free agents have not been signed, all these big names that are still out there, whether it's Jake Arrieta, JD Martinez, et cetera. I believe owners have finally gotten smart and they become fiscally prudent, because they've looked at Albert Pujols in that contract with the Angels, Alex Rodriguez in that contract with the New York Yankees. It was completely idiotic to give that many years to a player, no matter how great he was or how great you think he was going to continue to be. Those contracts are guaranteed contracts. So if that guy stinks, you still have to pay him his money and you have to pay a luxury tax on top of it. Owners are looking at the players now thinking, you are 30, 31 years of age. You're not getting a 10-year contract from us. You may get 4, possibly 5, but that's it, especially at that advancing age. Now, for players along the lines of Mike Trout, where he's in the prime of his career, those kind of guys are going to get those 8, 9-year deals. But the days of players past 30 years of age, especially pitchers, thinking they can get that kind of money, those days are completely over. And players don't like it. But as important, agents can't stand it because there's commissions flying out of the window. That's why Scott Boras was raising holy you-know-what about saying this is bad for baseball. No. This is what you should be doing. What you should be doing as an owner in Major League Baseball. If you're going to hamstring your team, that by the end of that guy's contract, you can't get rid of that contract and nobody's going to take it on, then you made that choice. Well, I think Derek Jeter decided to say, John Carlos Stanton, we're going to stink with you. We're going to stink without you. But if we're going to stink without you, at least I'm not going to have that contract as an albatross with this organization, and I'm going to get younger prospects in the meantime so we can really start over and really fortify this organization. The days of players getting those 8-9-year deals, whether they want to hear it or not, whether the agents want to hear it or not, those days are over. So now, what are the players and agents going to do about it? Because the owners are drawing that line in the sand to see if any owners thinking of crossing that if they get desperate. And right now, that does not seem to be the case.
Do you see a breaking point between the relationship between the players' union and MLB proper, especially with the CBA coming up soon?
Well, that's a really good question because, you have to look out for your players. I'm sure Tony Smith is going to do everything he can to look out for the people that employ him, especially being a former Major League Baseball player. And if you're Rob Manfred, you got to make sure what's good for the game has to make sure everybody is going to benefit. And Major League Baseball is not hurting guys. They're still a multi-billion-dollar business, so they're going to be fine. But if you're a player, when that new CBA comes up and you know that this could be the climate, that this is going to be the environment you have to deal with, then maybe that's a lesson for other players out there saying not everybody's going to get that big contract. We clearly understand that. They're going to be have and have-nots when it comes to baseball contracts with Major League Baseball players. But if the owners have let it be known saying, guys, you guys are going to make a lot of money, but not for the length of years that you're used to getting, when that became prevalent in Major League Baseball because so many desperate owners wanted to have that one guy that they believe is going to get them closer to the championship. Then 3-4 years in that contract, they were not any better because they were not able to put pieces around him because they didn't have that kind of money to spend. Owners are going to be more financially responsible. Not just, there's going to be a small market moment when you think about with big market teams. Now, the Dodgers are still going to spend money, but at a certain point, they're going to stop doing that. The New York Yankees kind of backed up a little bit, even though they brought in John Carlos Stanton's contract. They still have enough in their front system that they can be able to fortify him and Aaron Judge and people like that. If you're the Major League Baseball Players Association, you're going to have to take a long, hard look at the bottom line that could be the new bottom line for you. And if players don't like that, then what are your alternatives? Because the owners have the power. The players don't have that kind of power. And there's only so much they can do to make the owners move back a little bit to their side.
Now, looking at the presence of the IMG camps that the agencies are running, and Scott Boras has his own camps for unsigned free agents, is this taking attention away from Major League Baseball and spring training being so close from starting?
Oh, sure it is. But at a certain point, if those guys aren't in camp, there's only so much traction that's going to have. And I get it. It's grandstanding by Scott Boras and other agencies to make sure that people know, hey, look, our poor guys don't have jobs out there. Major League Baseball is doing this to our guys. I think a lot of agents don't realize that the agents have a big hand in this because if they were the ones that were driving the salary base up higher and higher and higher. And it got to a point that plenty of owners said, we're not going to deal with this. We're not going to have you put us in the corner and make us feel that we're wrong for not signing your guy for a lot of money and a long-term contract. So it's going to get a lot of attention. But once we get closer and closer to the season, more people are going to focus on, okay, can the Astros repeat? Are the Astros and the Yankees, is that the new rivalry in Major League Baseball? Can the Dodgers rebound from losing in a 7-game series? Who could be the surprise here in Major League Baseball? Those storylines are going to develop as you get closer and closer to the season. And whatever free agent camps are going on right now, that's going to lose steam. If anything, maybe by next week, as we get further into when spring training games get started, that's going to lose a lot of steam because all of a sudden now the focus will be on the players that are going to play and not the players and the agents out there left wanting for Major League teams to sign them.
Now, it's a little bit early for me to be asking this, Freddie, but I must do it anyway. Who do you feel is the favorite to win the World Series this year?
Well, it's easy to say the Astros, but I'm not going to say that. Even though I love the way they play, I love the way they get after it. You can make a case for them. You can make a case for the Yankees. You can make a case for the Cleveland Indians. If anybody has enough motivation to get back and try to win a World Series, and especially Cleveland has not won one since right after the end of World War II, they're going to be motivated. The Dodgers, they're going to be motivated. The Cubs, they're going to be motivated. And signing Yu Darvish was a big, big piece that they believe can help them get back to winning a World Championship. I think if I had to put my money on an odds-on favorite right now, I think it would be the Chicago Cubs. And even before they signed Yu Darvish, I believe now that they're 1 year past the hangover of breaking that streak of not winning a World Series in more than a century. I think now that they're past that, they've been able to deal with it. They're still one of the most talented baseball teams in the league. They're one of the most talented baseball teams that we've seen in quite a while in the National League. They have the pitching, they have the defense, they have the hitting, and they have the moxie. I think now, 1 year removed from all of that, that is something that Houston is going to have to deal with and go through. And how will they handle that will be very interesting. But if I had to put my chips on the table on a team right now, it would be the Chicago Cubs, because now no one is talking about them breaking that jinx. It's going to be about, man, they signed Yu Darvish. They are really in it to try to get back to where they were about a year and a half ago.
Talking with Freddie Coleman of ESPN Radio. Freddie, moving on to the National Football League. What's your take on Josh McDaniels pretty much spurning the Colts? Do you think he was promised something?
Oh, I completely believe that, and we'll never know, because trying to get information out of the New England Patriots, well, you got a better chance of getting information out of the CIA, where they have classified information that no one's supposed to know. But if Bill Belichick walks into a room on the Tuesday you're about to leave to go to have a press conference the next day for your new football team, there's no way there was not an assurance that Josh McDaniels was going to have something where he was going to be part of whatever's in place when it comes to succession program, when it comes to Bill Belichick, because we know Bill Belichick is not going to coach forever. He's even put it out there that he does not want to be an NFL coach when he's 73, 74, 75 years of age. So that was a little bit of a crack in the door when it came to Bill Belichick letting us in exactly what his future may entail, staying as a coach in the National Football League. It's one thing if Bill Belichick showed up in that room to say, Josh, please stay. Josh might have looked at him and said, well, dude, I got another chance to be an NFL head coach. I can't pass this up. The only way that he would have decided to stay would have been if Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick told him, look, we want you to be the next coach of the New England Patriots. Don't run away and go to Indianapolis culture. In a perfect situation here, we have a perfect Patriot way in place. There's no need for you to go somewhere and start over when there should be a football team. That's the only reason that I can see that Josh McDaniels was not going to go to the Colts. He had already hired a coaching staff, so he was pretty much locked in to take over this organization. Now, the timing was bad. It was completely awful. I clearly understand that. But if you feel that you can't go someplace and be comfortable because you know that something is in line for you in a place that you feel is going to be better for you, then I understand why he made his decision. But there's no way that anybody can convince me that nothing was promised to him, either in writing or verbally, for Josh McDaniels to say, you know what, the Colts are nice, but it's a lot better here. Now,
talking about comfortable or uncomfortable situations and nerves, according to an ABC News report, Johnny Manziel has come out and said he has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and is taking medication for it. And he also mentioned returning to the football field, which, in my opinion, seems a little out of the ordinary. Do you think he will ever return to the field to play any football, let alone talking about the NFL?
Well, there's a developmental league that's going to happen this spring, and it seems that he's going to play there. But the NFL is real finicky about not only players having a lack of production if they believe that you can't help them win a championship, but also real finicky when it gets to personal issues. The minute that I heard bipolar disorder, I know what NFL owner said, boy, this guy had a lot of problems before, and now he's bipolar, and he plays quarterback. No. We can't give the keys to the kingdom to that guy, or even give that guy a tryout. And that's not to say that a team may not take a chance with Johnny Manziel. I just think it's too far-fetched right now, because even though I want the best for him, it has nothing to do with football. I want the best for him as a human being, and I'm glad that he realizes that his support system is going to be there, whether it's his parents or his fiance. That is something that's always been part and parcel of Johnny Manziel. The minute that he blew up and became a star when it came to college football, and then becoming a first-round pick with the Cleveland Browns. But now more than ever, that support system is going to have to be there, because the NFL should not be anybody's support system. The last thing I think Johnny Manziel should think about is, I'm glad I'm getting better so I can get back on the football field. He should think, I'm glad I'm getting better because for me as a person. But the NFL, when you mention any kind of disease, and bipolar disorder is a disease, when you have something like that and it's a personal issue, it's a mental issue like that, there are going to be plenty of owners and GMs that will say, nope, can't take a chance on that guy. Yeah, we hope nothing but the best for him. We wish him the best in future endeavors, but we can't have that guy come in for a tryout and have that kind of circus around our football team. They don't want to do a Colin Kaepernick anymore, and Colin Kaepernick has nowhere near any personal issues compared to Johnny Manziel. So they don't want to deal with him from that standpoint. The last thing they want is a circus with a disorder, a bipolar disorder, and a guy, Johnny Manziel, who's had a checkered past when it comes to being on and off the football field, whether before the NFL or the short time he was in the NFL.
Freddie, I know the story got a little bit buried with, the deluge of everything going on in the sports world, but do you think Reuben Foster's done now that he's been arrested for a second time?
I think the fact that he has not been cut by the San Francisco 49ers has probably given us our answer, mainly because Reuben Foster was a first-round pick. And when you have invested that kind of time, or you want to invest that kind of time and money in a player that was a high draft pick, you'll make plenty of excuses for him to either try to get him help or to make sure you can spend it where you can stay on your football team. If Reuben Foster was a 6th or 7th round draft pick or an undrafted free agent, the San Francisco 49ers would have cut him as soon as they found out about the information. They would not have waited for an investigation. But because they have a lot of belief and they're building a team, they signed Jimmy Garoppolo to his contract. It's now the second year for John Lynch as a general manager and Kyle Shanahan as a head coach. They want to make sure they have players on the field. If they believe that there's enough there where they can keep him, they're going to do everything they can to make sure he's on a football field. Now, if you're Reuben Foster, how many times are you going to think that you're going to have another chance to play in the NFL? When do you run out of chances? And maybe this could be that dividing line where he says, I have to get my act together or else. But there's a reason why we haven't heard anything about the San Francisco 49ers cutting him. It's because of where he was drafted, how much money and time they've invested in him, and how much they believe in his ability and talent. They believe he could be a once-in-a-generation linebacker. Guys with talent, with that potential otherworldly talent that can help your football team, a football team that has not mattered since they ran Jim Harbaugh out of town, you're going to find plenty of excuses and plenty of reason why they believe they should keep him and not that they should cut him.
One last thing, Freddie. It's Winter Olympics season. I turn to a TV right near me, and there's curling on. What do you think has been the most prominent, most important, whatever you want, story of this Winter Olympics season thus far?
Well, for me personally, my personal favorite has been Chloe Kim, because she's become the darling of the Olympics in my opinion. I know Michaela Schifrin, she's going to get a lot of attention. I clearly understand that, and she should. There are going to be plenty of other people that came into the Olympics, Shaun White, for example, that a lot of people knew. But I'm really glad that we're starting to see a personality of somebody who's only 17 years of age, has lived on her own, has a house in Las Vegas. We should all live that dream. That is the reality when it comes to Chloe Kim. And she's so refreshing. She's so honest. When somebody asks about tweeting in between her first and second run of the half pipe, she goes, what else was I supposed to do? She has grown up in the social media generation that's nothing to her. Anybody 35, 36 years of age competing in an event, they're not tweeting in between. But that was something that was so natural for her, and she was very forthcoming in saying, what else was I supposed to do, because that's what I've always done. The fact that she was able to win a gold medal and do it in a singular way like that and have that personality and everything with her mom and dad alongside of her, that's been my personal favorite so far, the Olympics, barely a week and a day that we've been able to see them in South Korea. And there have been other great storylines, for example, seeing the luge racer, I forgot his name right now, who got a silver medal last weekend, the first time the United States ever done that. That's a fantastic story, how he was ready to give up the sport and walk away from it not that long ago. And here he is giving himself one more try and getting a silver medal. Those kind of storylines are always going to get next to me. But Chloe Kim has been as refreshing as anybody I can remember in recent memory, being that young, being that aware, being that socially conscious, and yet still having fun doing something she's always wanted to do.
He is one half of Freddie and Fitzsimmons on ESPN Radio. You can hear him 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. And as I said before, he puts the cool in sports talk radio. Freddie Coleman, thanks for joining us and talking to us.
Absolutely, my friends. And you guys take care. I can't wait to do it again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Freddie. You're the greatest, man.
You guys are too kind with the words. So thank you so much. I can't wait to do it again soon, okay?
Okay.
Absolutely. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Unspoken Podcast. Go like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope, all at the UDUP. Go follow the Undetermined Podcast Network itself at the UD Network. Go like and follow all the rest of the Undetermined Podcast Network accounts. Let's throw a little plug in here, by the way, for Light the Lamp, one of the newest podcasts here at the Undetermined, hosted by our good friend Eric Lesel.
Yes, and I actually co-hosted the pilot episode, so hey, another reason to watch it. To make fun of me.
Or listen, whatever. Maybe your ears can watch the audio. I don't know.
So, for Nick Fodera and Nick Morgasen, I'm Tom Albano. You've been listening to the Unspoken Podcast, the Cheap Seat Sports Production Party Undetermined Podcast Network. Until then, good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody!
See you around, everybody.